Thank you.
Okay. Advocate Ramano? Advocate Ramano? And you are all welcome, and I'm happy that you are also well amid this terrible pandemic. I think we should remind ourselves, honorable members, that we agreed that we will look at Section 25 as a whole, because its subsections are interconnected and interrelated. We also agreed that our democracy is both representative and participatory, and that therefore, as public representatives, we don't have the monopoly of wisdom. Hence, the Constitution enjoins us to conduct public hearings to ensure that the people speak for themselves. So we're departing from those premises. I think we have now reached a stage where
recording in progress,
where we really have to drive this process to a closure. And you will also agree that we have afforded all political parties ample opportunity to interact, conduct bilaterals, and I guess the plane is now leveled for us to move forward. But maybe what we need to do is to take stock of where we agree, where we still disagree, and see how we manage the differences in such a way that we move towards some consensus. So I want to open the floor, maybe just restate that we identified the question of the state custody. And I think that when we deal with some of these matters, we must remember that we are not rewriting the whole constitution. We are not changing all the laws of the country, because the laws of the country, for instance, are very clear. They allow public ownership, private ownership, communal ownership. And so I think we have exhausted that debate. And then we also have the question of the courts. The question of the courts has also been exhausted. because we are saying we are not ousting the jurisdiction of the courts, but the courts retain their responsibility to come in to play where there is a dispute. But the responsibility of expropriation is the terrain of the executive, and I don't think there should be any question about that. And the only area where we still have some challenge, in my view, is subsection 25(7). So I think parties must express themselves on that issue. So we can see if we are still differing, how wide are the differences, and how are we going to manage that situation. And the other question is, which has been well articulated, is the question of nil compensation and without compensation. So I think that as well has been well articulated several times. So I would appeal that we shouldn't repeat things that are really have been exhausted. Let's try to move towards closure of this meeting. Thank you very much. The floor is open.
Honorable Chair, LESOMA's hand is up.
Oh, Honorable LESOMA, proceed.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. As promised earlier on, I would like to register an apology of Honorable Mahlatsi. She's not feeling well. She has tendered her apology, Chair.
Okay, we accept that. Thank you very much. Can we move to the substance of the matters now?
Chair.
Honorable Gumede?
Yes, my hand was up.
Yes.
Just for curiosity's sake,
Mm-hmm.
all parties present, well, I'm not talking the quorum, but it will be interesting to know, because at least as we find ourselves closer to them, it is important that all of us were present.
I don't see EFF here. I see Dr. Melda is here. DA is here. IFP, ACDP, I don't see them.
Any apologies tendered, Chair?
Not as far as I know. Let's check with the administration. Advocate Ramano or Advocate Gwebu?
Good morning, Chair. Mr. Shibambu is joining us now.
Oh, okay. Wonderful.
The only apology that I had received was from Honorable Mahlatsi, but I see that Honorable LESOMA has already tendered it.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Gumede, for that intervention. I think it is useful. Anyone who wants to take the floor?
Chair.
Honorable Kawa.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to all colleagues. The ANC will present its amended position following the discussions in the bilaterals with the different political parties. We believed, or we still believe that negotiations are a process of give and take. And so you must enter into a discussion and willing to be influenced. In that way, you accept that you may walk away with a different position than when you first entered the discussion at a bilateral level. Now, so we really want this process to move forward and to conclude with everyone on board. And we said it before that we're dealing with, a constitutional amendment that requires the support of 2/3 in the National Assembly and 6 provinces in the NCOP. And no single party going it alone can master the 2/3 majority. Therefore, we need, parties to, find each other for the good of our country. That's a spirit in which the ANC entered into this discussion with the various political parties. We reported previously that we extended ourselves to the Democratic Alliance, and so we've also met, so we had a bilateral with the Democratic Alliance, to be specific. We also had a bilateral with the Freedom Front. I sometimes confuse.
Chairperson, on point of order, with due respect, can we please get the essence of what the ANC's position is? We know the bilaterals, we take note of that, but what is the reason of taking us for the past 5 minutes now?
Honorable
speaking to one issue. You must get to the point.
Honorable Shibambo, with due respect to you, we gave parties to have bilaterals, or the opportunity to have bilaterals. We need to know if those bilaterals took place before we get to the substance. So Honorable Kawa is quite in order. Proceed, Honorable.
Thank you so much, Chair. And EFF, we've done a bilateral. We've also conducted a bilateral meeting with the EFF. DA, Freedom Front, EFF, I think 3 times if I'm not mistaken, and the IFP as well as the SADP. Those are the parties that responded to our invite. On the basis of these discussions, Chair, I just want to present our revised position, so that we then see whether other parties have also been influenced by the bilateral discussions. We'll present, and I wish that they also do the same, present their own positions, see how far they have moved since their last positions, their last proposals. So may I therefore invite the legal section a committee section to beam to flight our position so that I read through it.
Yes, legal section, are you there?
I'm willing to share if I can just be given that authority from Bonani.
Honorable Advocate Ramano, are you giving the authority? Honorable Advocate Ramano?
Yes, Chair, I'm doing that.
Okay. Are you winning?
Yes, Chair, I'm able to. Let me just find the relevant documents. Oh, no. For some reason, my screen sharing is paused. I don't know what that means.
Honorable Shibambo, are you raising your hand?
No. I'll speak after the presentation,
Okay.
and I'll give an apology because I'll be boarding a flight. So
Can you give
I'll speak.
the other one, Charmaine?
The other one, okay.
That's not with the shaded part. My apologies, Chair.
Okay. Charmaine.
Yes, sorry, Chair, I just had to open it first, and then I now need to just find the document on my screen.
I've just emailed you now. Okay.
Okay.
I hope this is now the right one.
Just go down, I'll tell you. Yes, it's the right one. All right. Okay, so colleagues, this is what we are presenting. And all right, so 2B, sorry, 25 2B, and remains unchanged from what we presented previously. And that we are saying we are presenting the proviso as we presented it previously, provided that where land and any improvement thereon are expropriated for purposes of land as contemplated in subsection 8, the amount of compensation may be nil. And but that proviso comes immediately after the word court. You know, I just want to read the proviso in full so that it's clear to the public that we're not ousting the role of the court. Let me read it in full. Be subject to compensation, of which and the time and manner of payment of which have either been agreed to by those affected or decided or approved by a court, provided that where land and any improvements thereon are expropriated for purposes of land reform as contemplated in subsection 8, the amount of compensation may be nil. All right, so can we move? And we go to C. And there's a new insertion there, paragraph 3A. You can see it's been reworded, and it now reads, For the furtherance of land reform, national legislation must, subject to subsections 2 and 3, set out circumstances where the amount of compensation is nil. Let's go to D. D, again, reworded. Now, to read, I now read 4A, 4 capital A. The land is the common heritage of all citizens that the state must safeguard for future generations. Let's go to E. E, now you can see we have also reworded the amendment in 25.5 to read. I want to read the whole provision. The state must take reasonable legislative and other measures within its available resources to foster conditions which enable state custodianship of certain land in order for citizens to gain access to land on an equitable basis. And that concludes our revised submission today. I wish to thank all the parties that have actually enriched our submission today. And that again is in the spirit of give and take. I would welcome to see what other parties have to put on the table. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Baba, for a very clear presentation, and I hope the principal will be happy to hear that the ANC is also prepared to give and take. Honorable Shibambo?
Not Chair, like we fundamentally disagree with the ANC's revised position. So anything that would say subject to compensation, we're never going to agree to that. And anything that says that custodianship is only for certain land is also problematic, because it's also saying that legislation will be established to foster that in terms of what should happen. It doesn't categorically say that the state is custodian of all of South Africa's land in terms of weapons. And then I want to update you of our approach now, Chair, that we had realized that the engagements with committee members on a bilateral basis has not been very useful, because majority of times they are not decision makers in the ANC. They still have to consult at a different level. So we have been in engagement now with the officials of the ANC, the top 6 of the ANC, well, it was top 5 or top 6, with the latest developments, to then say that let's sit down and discuss. And if that discussion does not bear any fruitful consequences, we'll just have to agree that we do not have the common perspective in terms of amendment of Section 25. And I understand now that the Secretary General, Commissar Marshall Dlamini, was indicating that on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, we will be having the first much more substantial deliberations in terms of what constitutes a common approach, because with all fairness, like and with due respect, the engagements that we've had thus far have not been fruitful, because in many instances there were deferments to senior leadership. So we had then thought that let's just directly engage with the leadership of the organization so that we know what to do. But in the current proposed framework, which is presented as if it's a compromise or as an outcome of the deliberations, we fundamentally are opposed. So even the mentioning of custodianship is just opportunistic. It doesn't reflect what we said should be articulated as custodianship as the EFF. Our categorical demand is that we must establish the custodianship in the Constitution. And then what we will then say should be passed to foster that environment is a redistribution legislation that will say this is how a redistribution law will be put in place. And we have several times clarified that redistribution, custodianship is not nationalization of the land. I heard the president of the ANC saying in one of the interviews, confusing custodianship with nationalization. It's not the same. We've clarified this several times. And if people refuse to accept that, it's okay. Let's just agree to disagree in terms of what happens. But I can assure you, Chair, that post Wednesday next week, we will be knowing whether we're coming or going in terms of this process. If we disagree, it's okay. And then we'll then see how else do we then deal with the land question. There are so many options. Our people have been taking back the land. Maybe it must be elevated, much more radical and decisive mechanism if the politicians do not want to agree on a simple and straightforward approach. Thank you.
I just want to say, I don't want us to debate on the basis of press reports and so on. Let's confine ourselves to what emerges between ourselves, because otherwise people that are referred to in the media are not here to answer for themselves whether they were understood or misunderstood. So let's leave that out. Honorable Melda. Honorable Melda.
Yes, Honorable Chairperson, Dr. Lotrick and Honorable LESOMA were before me. I don't know if you want to give them a chance.
I don't see their hands.
I beg your pardon.
Oh, I see Honorable LESOMA. Honorable LESOMA, I think I'll take you first and then Dr. Melda.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Let's take note what has just been said thus far. The decision for bilaterals was taken at this committee, at this level. If then the leadership of EFF happens to be members of parliament, I don't think that's our problem. But also if they feel their view that they are going bilaterals are instructive and demanding and all that, that's not the way I understand the bilaterals should be. Secondly, Chair, is that we need to be very responsible. For me, if they say because he decided, Honorable Shivambu, to engage on the ANC instead of saying what is their position informed bilaterals, other than just saying that he has decided to take the process outside the parliamentary process where we agreed on, which we don't have a problem with that. But in terms of their input, talking to deprivation, our response and my response, Chair, here and now, deprivation is necessary for the public purpose. It cannot be done away with. We have used the mineral rights legislation, which we have been also engaging on in the previous engagement, as it were. But also that if they feel that also the property may be expropriated without compensation, and it goes on and on, we are also against that. It goes against our policy, as they also want to force us with their policy. We are addressing land, not property, not all property, which is very important for the public to know that we are dealing with the land, not all property. And we will engage if they want us to engage on property. Secondly, Chair, thirdly, is the issue where they are talking about deletion of subsection 3. We are not going to agree on that, which is not in line with our policy as the ANC. Our policy allows for compensation under certain circumstances, taking note of the material conditions, Chair. Thank you very much. I felt that I must respond on behalf of the ANC. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable LESOMA. Honorable Dr. Lotrick.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning to all the colleagues. First of all, I would just like to state that I have a problem with the way in which Honourable Zalba referred to the purpose of the bilaterals. And that was our problem right from the start as well, is that the function of the bilaterals was not to get a 2/3 majority. That is the wrong premise to start bilaterals on. The focus and premise of the bilateral should have been what is in the interest of the country and what is in the interest of the people of the country. and not for the ANC to get a 2/3 majority. But besides that, having a look at the proposals now, Chairperson, I want to reiterate the Democratic Alliance's position that we do not agree with the proposed amendments. In fact, I want to state again, we do not think the Constitution has to be amended. But in terms of 2B, we are still opposed to the inclusion of any improvements thereon, and that the compensation can be null. We cannot support that. I think I said last week as well, the financial implications of this could be devastating. And as such, at this point, we don't know what the projections are in terms of the financial and economic implications for the country as a whole and for the property market. Then, sorry, you have to read 2B with 3A. And that makes it even more concerning, is that the conditions are left to the executive or national legislation, where there is a much lower threshold. So we cannot support 3A or 2B. And the new number, let me just go back to, yes, and then 25.5. What the ANC is proposing now, which is quite problematic, because I believe that it totally changes the meaning and intention of 25.5 of the writers of our Constitution, because in the original form it says, within its available resources, to foster conditions which enable citizens to gain access to land on an equitable basis. That is correct. The state should foster conditions to enable all citizens to gain access to land. Now it is a qualifier to foster conditions to enable custodianship, even if they state only in certain pieces of land. But now it takes away the total meaning of the original intention. So we cannot support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Honorable Dr. Honorable Dr. Mulder.
Yes, good morning, Chairperson and colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to start off to thank Honorable Kaba for the putting the views of the ANC on the table, that we can take note of that. Chairperson, I've got a little bit of a technical problem now. None of us can speak on behalf of any other party. Now, I need some clarity. The proposals put by Mr. Kaba, Honorable Kaba, I take them as the official position of the ANC. That's why the committee had to deal with them this morning. If I listen to Honorable Shivambu, he's of the opinion that there may be some other views on the side of the ANC, and he hopes to hear those views, it seems, next Wednesday. It's difficult to engage if I need some clarity. Are the views put on the table at this moment, are they the official view of the ANC as a political party? And I would like to have some clarity on that, perhaps before we engage any further, because you should understand, Chairperson, we were supposed to finalize this process at the end of May. It was then argued and asked by the Honourable Mr. Shivambu on behalf of the EFF that we should extend the time and give some more time for those bilaterals. That was done. I understand there were some bilaterals. The committee is now being told that those bilaterals didn't deliver the necessary results because the people representing the ANC was not acceptable, it seems, to the EFF. But it makes it very. The question is, why should we proceed if we don't know that this is the final or the official current position of the ANC? Do I have some clarity, please?
Honorable Chair, if I may respond to that.
Yes.
We are representing the ANC, Dr. Mutla, here. And that's the position of the ANC. The rest is not part of this meeting. Thank you very much.
Dr. Mulder, Honorable MINA is right. The ANC has deployed its members to Parliament, and those members are seized with these questions. And in terms of our agreement on bilaterals, we said that all political parties reserve the right to touch base with their principles. And that's what I believe that the ANC have been doing and all other parties have been doing. So to come here and suggest that there is another ANC position out there which must be sourced before we proceed is actually out of order. there's only one ANC and there's one ANC position. And if the ANC wants to communicate anything to its deployees, it will do that through its deployees, not through third parties. So this process proceeds, and I hope that the fact that we need 2/3 majority to pass this legislation doesn't give any party the right to blackmail others and say, you give me what I want, otherwise I don't cooperate. That's not the spirit with which we are conducting our business here. Dr. Mulder, have you been answered?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. No, that is very clear, and that clarifies the position. And I just needed some clarity in that regard. So I understand that the position put by the Honourable Kaba this morning is the official position of the ANC, and that's why we are discussing it. And then obviously we should proceed. And it's in your hands, Chairperson, how you're going to take the process forward. And if there are going to be any other bilaterals on any other level, that's neither there, neither here. Chairperson, if I may react just to some of the proposals quickly, let me start off by saying that we are not in favor of the whole notion of expropriation without compensation in the sense as it's being put in terms of these proposals. If you refer to where compensation could be nil, and then you refer to national legislation, we also have a problem with that in that regard, because we believe that national legislation should not be the place. Even if you want to go in that route, it should be expressly indicated and stipulated in the Constitution and under which circumstances that would even be an option, not in terms of national legislation. I just want some clarity also, and I would like to ask Mr. Kaba please to respond. The new provision, the subsection that says the land is the common heritage of all citizens, that the state must safeguard for future generations. It's just a statement. I've got two questions. The first one would be, what does that mean in terms of people who are owners of land in South Africa who are not citizens? What effect is that on their ownership? And secondly, in practical purposes, what steps, what does it mean if we say that the state must safeguard the land for future generations? What does that mean in practice? I just need some clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mulder. I see Honorable Gumede, and then Honorable Kawa, Honorable LESOMA. Honorable Gumede.
Prof, my hand is also up, Chair.
Oh, yes, I think I saw you and it disappeared. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Chair, I'm with you.
Yes,
with
proceed.
me?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm with you. Yes, proceed.
There is, I hear the debates, Chair, and I just want to flag a few issues or highlight perhaps some of the things that other parties may not be aware of. Since we started the discussions, I've noticed that the ANC is the only component that has currently accommodated the views of others, which in fact has impacted on, it could be a slight change or a change from the positions we had last time. I remember that the DA raised a concern about the role of the court, and the ANC went back and panel beated the clause such that it's trying to meet DA halfway. Whether DA is not happy or is happy, but the ANC has done something to that effect. Originally, when we did our discussions, we had no concept of custodianship. it was a concept raised by EFF. However, the ANC went back, panel beated its position to accommodate EFF. Today, we have a clause that covers the custodianship. Whether EFF is happy, not happy, but the ANC has attempted to accommodate the views raised by other parties. I have not seen any other party attempting to move from its position to try and accommodate perhaps the views of the ANC. So, in the words of Honorable Mulder, it's that he's asking whether is this a final position of the ANC. We are saying yes, but we are keeping our ears much more opened from the discussions that are being advanced here. If ever there is a need or the requirement that we panel beat some of the clauses and come back and present because we are accommodating their views, that will be well and good for the ANC to have done that. I wish all other parties learn from the ANC and be in a position to accommodate some of the views that are presented by the ANC. That's what I wanted to say, Chair. And it is important for the ANC to know that some other people, as ANC, I'm thankful to the energy that's taken by the ANC, as well as to accommodate other parties. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Gumede, for emphasizing the principle of give and take in negotiations, and observing that others are not coming out to accommodate. I hope this will assist them to reflect and on their positions. Honorable Kaba.
Chair, thank you very much. No, thank you very much, Chair. I just want to respond to Honorable Lottridge and Honorable Mulder. I want to start by saying that we're in this committee representing the African National Congress. We are engaged in a parliamentary process, and that the ANC, will speak via its members in Parliament or the relevant portfolio committee, not via any other political party. If it has anything it wants to convey to Parliament, it will go via its members and right down to the relevant what you call study group. So I thought I should just confirm that. And then two, our discussion was not to garner 2/3 majority. We're not in that business. The bilateral, otherwise we would not have extended the bilateral to the EFF. I mean the Freedom Front, for example. I mean the Freedom Front has 10 members in Parliament. So the IFP has, again, I don't know how many members it has, and but the ANC and the EFF, I mean the Freedom Front, will not give us 2/3 majority, but we took it to our heart that it is critical that we hear what they have to say, what their comments are on the process that we are engaged in, and then we worried ourselves with what must we do to accommodate their concerns. And we expected them to do the same. Hence, we said we're engaged in the spirit of a give and take. I mean, we went to the SADP. I mean, there's about how many members? 4 or 5 members in parliament. So it is in the spirit of bilaterals that this committee, it's not the ANC that the ANC's machinations. It's this committee that decided on the process. So if I was misunderstood when I mentioned 2/3, I raised it in the context that that's the majority required to pass this amendment, and that in the NSOP you need 6 provinces supporting the bill. Now, coming back to to Mr. Mulder, he asked what is, does this, what do you mean by common heritage? I mean, just give it the, what you call the literal meaning, common heritage of all citizens. And how else can we put it? I mean, it's a natural resource, and there is no two way about it. And because it's a natural resource, it is a heritage, of South Africans, So I don't know how else can we put it other than saying that. I can't say it's a common heritage of the world. We're not in the world, or common heritage of the continent. Yeah, we're in the continent. Yes, we're in the world, and but here we're talking about that which God gave to the people of South Africa, and no one else. I think it is in that context. But if he has another suggestion to make, Chair, I'm inviting him to put it in black and white, because we're still in discussion. I'm inviting him to make his comments as to how we can improve this. But for now, it's what we put forward as our position. And then he goes on to say that it's a statement. It's not true. It's not true. And we are saying that the land is the common heritage of all citizens, that the state, we are putting an obligation on the state to safeguard it for prosperity, for future generations.
Posterity, yes.
Posterity. So that's what we are saying. There's an obligation we are placing on the state. The Bill of Rights is about rights and or obligations, So therefore, there's a purpose mentioned there's a purpose built in the provision, and it's unlike the provision before. If you were commenting on what we had presented before, I would understand it, because it was a statement, right, that gave neither obligation nor a right to anyone. So I think we've clarified that, and so that's I'm sure that has been I've explained it, but I still invite the DA to write, because negotiations does not mean that you have to be in the same room, or can even communicate in writing, communicate with each other in writing. In that context, let's give them, Chair, 72 hours from today to write to us if they still have any concerns. It's a pity that we are getting to know their concerns in the meeting when the opportunity was given to parties to conduct bilaterals. But it's the nature of this process. But we think we have moved significantly from where we were previously, but none of the parties has done it. And but we're still inviting them to enrich our submission. And but for now, this is our position following the discussions with the different political parties. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kaba. Honorable LESOMA.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Just probably because my colleagues from the ANC have covered me, to urge all of us that if we are so serious about changing the land ownership patterns of this country, we must be seen doing that. You cannot just pledge your commitment without being practically being seen doing that. Secondly, Chair, that I will urge colleagues that when we read Section 25, we don't read subsections in isolation of each other. I will tell you why, Chair. In terms of the compromised bill that went out for public participation processes, 3A and our 3A, the only thing that we are doing in our proposal, Honorable Chair, is that we are relieving courts to not to do the executive authority responsibilities, but they come when both parties there is a disagreement. So the issue of the last word, which I can just quote from the initial compromised bill that went out for public participation, the last 3 words, that the amount of compensation is nil. I will still retain that one. The only thing that we're saying that you read it in conjunction with subsection 2 and 3, which then specifies. Secondly, let me come to the issue of legislation, Chair. The actual original of the actual tax existence in the Constitution now speaks to that there must be a legislation. We are reinforcing that to say the conditions where expropriation is nil must be determined in the legislation. You can't put it in the Constitution because it's going to be too elaborate. But also, which also will also deal with the scientific modalities. How have they arrived in terms of the expropriation to be nil? So we are saying that we are trying to say responsible, so to say what is the original text and what do we want to achieve, but are we bringing all the South Africans along? Be mindful, Chair, that if you go to the extreme, people who took the land from us never paid for anything, but because we understand that we're in a democratic country. So there must be that. That's why we're starting to say may on top, and also then reinforce the importance that there will be those circumstances that they must be nil. And of course, if parties don't agree, they don't agree. But the very last point that I would like to raise, Chair, it's a two-pronged. It's the one that we respect when our colleagues say that they don't want any amendment whatsoever. Probably they've benefited a lot from the existing tax assistance. And we're saying we're making explicit to make sure that there's a change of land ownership patterns of this country. But the very last one, Chair, if a person doesn't trust you, guess you that probably what you are saying is not what you are saying, it will be beyond the means of ANC to explain itself. Here, in terms of explaining the term here I'm using in terms of trust and believing, that we have explained the manner we are putting custodianship in terms of subsection 5 and explain the rationale of that. And we respect if other colleagues, they don't trust us, but nevertheless, we are honest, we are sincere, as correctly Honorable Kaba says, that we are not chasing the numbers. We are transform the land ownership patterns more than anything else. It cannot remain as the same as yesterday. Thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable Moroatshehla.
Prof and Chairperson, to this all important ad hoc committee. I will start right away by indicating, Prof, that in your opening remarks, more than once, you have indicated the nature of our state, South Africa, that it is both a constitutional and a participatory democracy. But I must indicate from the onset, Prof, that we should not abuse that. And what do I mean? South Africans have given us an opportunity to correct the ills of the past. But if every time we meet, we are just going to keep on talking left, right, and center without providing a workable solution, we will not be fair to this nation. Will not be fair to Parliament, will not be fair to ourselves, and we will not be fair to the society at large. And as a result, Chairperson, I want to make mention of this one important point. And before I make a little bit of elaboration, that all members of this committee which you are chairing and leading must understand that the Fifth Parliament was very sober when they resolved to constitute this all-important ad hoc committee. And our mandate was very clear. And the mandate was saying, go out there and amend Section 25 of our Constitution by way of making explicit that which is implied. So for us, Chairperson, to come here, you say, I find it a little bit disturbing, if not an insult, from the DA. And then in particular, you see, FF Plus, it's at least they are open to talks and negotiations. To say their mandate is that they should not change anything. You see, it's as good as they could have said to the Fifth Parliament that they are not going to be part of the ad hoc committee. They are part, and being part now, come to the ad hoc committee, they are saying to us, Chair, that nothing must change in that. In other ways, it means, according to them, there is no need of this committee. They have participated in the public hearings. They participated both in the oral and the written submissions. But now, how dare they, when we are supposed to wrap up, DA comes and say, nothing must be amended in that constitution, in that piece of legislation. Maybe let me go briefly to the EFF and say, Comrade Shibam, Honorable Shibam, you see, given your background and my background, you and I know very well that the nature of any negotiations is give and take. We cannot approach a challenge of this nature with a hardened position to say, it is my way or the highway. Ubaba Gumed has correctly indicated. He indicated that from time in the past, the African National Congress has been engaging and with the willingness to shift from their initial position. You can take an example on the issue of custodianship as it is already expressed. We are being open to say our approach, let it be a hybrid ownership where we take into consideration that the land has to belong to the public and to private and also communal. By so saying, we shall have covered almost all and sundry. This is the current position where the African National Congress is. Our people have been dispossessed of their rightful land. And I take it we are a dwindling and meandering far too long, Chairperson. And our people outside there, they will grow impatient. The fact that this is a constitutional and a participatory democracy will one day lapse when our people will love to use force to reclaim what rightfully belongs to theirs. We have shifted, like what Baba Gumede has indicated, also from the issue of the courts. And I believe the DA must be comfortable with that. On subsection 25, number 7, we are saying, you see, we are also open and remain to be persuaded. But look here, it's only Honorable Kaba, representing the African National Congress, who is able to present the ANC position. My question is, where are positions of other parties? So that, you see, women, they always respond to our written position, but we can't see what their position is, which means they are so critical to an extent that they don't want to put their position in a written form so that we are able to see and pedal beat where the penal beating is necessary. But as I conclude, Chairperson, let me indicate that as the African National Congress, we remain open for any form of persuasion and then from any party, as long as at the end of the day, we shall have addressed this piece of legislation so that we have got the land which will be expropriated without compensation. Other nitty-gritties, it may be a thing of tomorrow, but let us amend as per the mandate given to us. We can't delay this mandate any further, Prof. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable members, history is very, very important in the resolution of conflicts. There were two challenges or problems facing South Africa. The one problem was the native question. And that native question was resolved by the Freedom Charter when it said South Africa belongs to all who live in it. And therefore, when the 1996 Constitution was adopted, the vote was given to all South Africans. So the native question has been resolved. But the second problem is the land question. That land question was also resolved by the Freedom Charter when it said South Africa belongs to all who live in it. But as matters stands today, that problem has not yet been resolved. This process we are engaging in seeks to address that land question. So this question about heritage, I'm not sure if it can be seen outside what the Freedom Charter says, that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. And obviously, if we stand by that position, it means that South Africa is our heritage, all of us. But that heritage is not limited to us. It extends to posterity. So the state has a duty, the state run by us has a duty to protect this heritage for future generations. So I think this is just an academic matter that we're engaged with here, and it shouldn't hold us back to say South Africa is the heritage of all of us. It's the same thing as saying South Africa belongs to all of us, but not only to the living, but also to the unborn children that are described as posterity. So I think let's just come out of that using the documents policy documents that exist, also our constitution. Then we'll find an answer there. But also the question of national legislation. Dr. Melder, you know that national legislation is an enabling legislation. but you cannot incorporate everything that must be done through national legislation into a constitution. That constitution would not be workable. And the constitution also provides a framework, cannot foresee everything and provide for everything. But if other things are provided in the national legislation, which would be easy to amend, it's not much better. So I don't think that we should be debating whether or not we need national legislation. National legislation is provided for by the constitution itself. So it's not really something that should delay us. But I think also, as Honorable Moroatshehla repeats there, that public ownership, private ownership, communal ownership is settled law. It's there. It's only that there are imbalances in this ownership, and therefore we need to address those imbalances. And if we fail to do so, it means that we are opting for the Zimbabwe solution. And it will be a sad day if what happened in Zimbabwe comes to South Africa, because it will boil down to a black-on-black conflict. And the founders of this republic have helped us. They provided a way of resolving disputes peacefully. And we, this generation, cannot move away from the negotiated settlement of disputes and open the door to violent resolutions of disputes. So I really want to appeal to members that as the ANC is saying, this process is give and take, and they have given, and we want other parties also to give and not just to complain about what other parties are doing. I think I must also commend Dr. Mulder. I think he puts pointed questions, and where there's clarity that he sought, he puts questions to seek that clarity. But I can see that he's really engaging and he's helping us to move forward. So I think that we should all embrace that spirit of working together to find a solution. Because as I said before, this problem is not the EFF and ANC problem. This is a South African problem. And all of us must find a solution to this problem. And no one must blackmail others in this process. We must work together to find a solution to this South African problem, and that solution must be in the best interest of all South Africans. Any other? I don't see any other hand. If there's no any other hand, can we say that the ANC has issued a challenge?
Honorable Chair.
Yeah.
Yes. My apologies. There is a gadget that is called TENCO. It's TECNO Spark 5A. The hand is up.
Oh, I see.
Sinawo, Tabo, the hand there. I'm sure those are all members, hopefully. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for helping me, because I don't see any hand here. So you say Sinawo and someone else?
Chairperson?
Yes.
Maybe before you give them the floor, I know that Mr. Tambo is a member of parliament, but that TechnoSpark, I don't know who that person is. So if maybe that person could identify him or herself before you give them a platform.
Okay. You say the other person is a member of parliament, but is he a member of this committee?
No, he's not a member of the committee, but he is a member of parliament. And
Now,
therefore, he can participate as a member of parliament.
Chairperson?
Yes.
I don't agree with advocate. You see that any member from parliament can participate here. Some presidents were set where some of the members of parliament were taken out when they wanted to participate. I think they can only observe but not to participate. This is my view, because in the past presidents were set. I just wanted to say that, because if you are going to open the subcommittee, I mean the portfolio committee, to all members of parliament one time, you are not going to be able to control it. Thank you very much.
On a point of order, Chair.
Advocate Ramano,
On a point of order, Chair.
Yeah, who's yes, proceed.
Yeah, the view of the honorable member is not coherent with the rules. So whatever precedent that of the perspective has been set in the past was incorrect, and if they did not intervene on that precedent being set at that particular point in time, we can't be condemned because of their own failures. Members of parliament are allowed to engage in portfolio committees. They're allowed to attend them, especially instead of other members when they're not present. Honorable Shibambu had indicated here that he has a flight to catch, and I'm here on behalf of the EFF. So I think it would be grossly unfair for us to be subjected to the failures of people to intervene on precedents they are allowed to be set at that point in time, and now we must be victims of that process. So I strongly disagree with the previous honorable member. Thank you very much.
Chair, I think Honorable Tambo, Chair, I think I've assisted you to recognize members. Honorable Tambo, when he will be given a chance, he will state that he is representing Honorable Shivambu, because we must know who are the alternates, who are members, who are stepping in for other members, because there must be a flow of engagements as well. We shouldn't be taking it back. But I think he should have just done that. We would have proceeded. I can see the other one have just locked off, Chair, which -1 challenge. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, I agree with Honorable Moroatshehla, because if the committee is to be opened to all members of parliament, that would be a big problem, because parliament appoints the ad hoc committee and allocate numbers to different political parties. But I would understand if we were saying alternates can step in. That is an established practice. But that we throw it open to all members of parliament, that would not be correct. So I don't think we have a problem now, because the other person, Honorable Tambo, is an alternate. So alternates are allowed, it's an established practice. So we have no problem. Let's proceed. Honorable Tambo, proceed. Is Honorable Tambo still there?
Yes, I'm still here, Chair.
Yeah, can you take the floor?
No, thank you very much, Chair. I think we might have intercepted each other, because as you were speaking, you were saying that you are going to pose to members that the African National Congress has effectively posed a challenge to other political parties in terms of a give and take of what constitutes a negotiation when one is constructing policy. And I just wanted to, for the sake of the public and as well as for members in the community, to just outline what, to refute perhaps what Honorable Ronnie, I'm struggling to pronounce the surname, had been saying. Number one, on the fact that the EFF has not posted or presented any written submission to this committee and is only refuting positions that are put forward by the African National Congress. That is not true, number one. The EFF has, not only in bilaterals, but also in this committee, presented substantive arguments as to what we think amendments must be made in order to enable expropriation of land without compensation, for equal redistribution and the custodianship of the state. Number two, I think it's a misrepresentation to say that the African National Congress has either undertaken a give or take process or shifted from what is its original position. Because if we are to understand the Constitution as it stands and the African National Congress's position, there isn't any significant shift from the status quo as it exists. To say that the African National Congress has conducted a give or take or shifted from its position towards custodianship, for example, in terms of private ownership, communal ownership, and state custodianship, is nothing new. Those are the current conditions as they stand and exist currently. To say that to allow for compensation to be nil is a shift or a compromise on the part of the African National Congress is not true if we are to look at what the Constitution states as it stands. So I think for the sake of the public, we mustn't represent the reaffirmation of the status quo as fundamental shifts in policy positions. Because if we were to take that position, then it's going to make the rest of us here seem unreasonable and as people who are not engaging in negotiations in earnest. We are simply saying as the economic freedom fighters that, look, the positions that are being brought forward by the African National Congress do not seem to make any fundamental change to the Constitution that will make any difference or fast track the land expropriation program in South Africa in order to alleviate the cries of our people to have land restored to them and their dignity restored. It's simply a reaffirmation of the status quo, and that is our point of disagreement. And our point of disagreement must not then be characterized as advocating for perhaps an approach that was taken in Zimbabwe. The EFF has never said that the land expropriation process that must be undertaken in South Africa, as you seem to suggest in your closing remarks, where you seek to motivate for negotiation that is in earnest. We have never suggested that we must undertake the process that was undertaken in Zimbabwe. There's nothing violent about amending the Constitution. The Constitution itself allows for amendment. There's nothing that infringes on the rights of others in amending a Constitution that allows provisions for amendment in itself. And our amendment is not a violent process. To allow for state custodianship is to say land must be in the custodianship of the highest representative body of the will of the people, which, if we are to take any measurable form of that, it's the electorate. There's no other way of deciding or determining the democratic will and outcomes of the people outside of an electoral mandate. So if the electorate mandates us, or if we, along with another party that will constitute a two-thirds majority, resolve on amending the Constitution to expropriate land without compensation and to enable state custodianship, there's nothing unconstitutional or undemocratic about that. It will be a mandate of the electorate being rolled out by a majority of political parties elected by the people. So I think we just wanted to make that point and then end on saying that there's no suggestion that the deployees of the African National Congress here do not represent the position of the African National Congress, but it's just our experience in bilaterals has made us realize that we must engage directly with principles rather than if people who are going to have to go and seek to reaffirm whether their mandate is in correct track or not. And we are going to do that and come back and report on that position. And I think we must just leave that there. So that was just to clarify a few misconceptions that the public might have picked up in terms of the EFF not being willing to negotiate or do a give and take. We can't do a give and take on reaffirmations of the existing status quo that has resulted in a slow pace of land redistribution in this country. Thank you very much, Chair.
Mr. Tambo, no one in this meeting suggested that the EFF wants to the Zimbabwe option. It is only me from the chair who said failure of this parliament and this committee to address the land question could lead to the Zimbabwe type, because it means the people will take the law into their hands. If the lawmakers are not able to resolve the land question, then the people will take the law into their hands. That's what I suggested. I said, I didn't mean that it is the EF position or anybody's position. And I'm very sorry if I was understood to mean that, to attribute that to the EFF. There was no intention to do that. I only suggest that if we fail, the people may take the law into their hands, and that would lead to a Zimbabwe type of a situation. And I don't know if you have read the Ngonyama judgment, because if you say state custodianship means all land must be in the hands of the state, it means now the state will lease the land to the people. Then where is ownership? People have waged wars of resistance against colonialism, defending their land. Our people still know which land was violently taken away from them. Are we going to use the law ourselves to take the land from everybody and say everybody must be a tenant of the state? Is that what we are saying? And if we are saying that, is that what the people will be acceptable to the people of this country? So I want to urge members again, read the Ngonyama Trust and reflect further on this situation. But you see, the ANC, the EFF, the ACDP, Freedom Front Plus, the Inkatha Freedom Party are parties on their own. No one can stop them from having their meetings. But all that we are saying, we are in charge of a parliamentary process. We will deal with what is before us in this parliament, but we won't stop other people from making their own meeting out there. But as far as we are concerned, we are saying there must be give and take, because we are seeking a South African solution, not a party political position. And that's why Honorable Kaba correctly said that we are talking to parties which have less numbers, because we want to benefit from their insights into this question. So we are not targeting bigger parties like DA and EFF because we want numbers. We are targeting all political parties because they also represent a section or sections of our people, and the solution that we need is the solution that will be in the best interest of all South Africans. So, honorable members, is there any other input? Hello? Can I make, are we still together? Yes, honorable.
Yes, Chairperson.
Yeah.
I raised my hand.
Yes. Honorable.
Proceed.
Proceed, please.
No, Chairperson, thank you. I'm not sure, and it's up to you as Chairperson to make a ruling, but I'm not sure if we're going to succeed in taking anything much further today. If I may ask, could we please have a written copy of the ANC's proposal? We've heard that now today. If that could be sent to us from legal services, perhaps, then we can have a look in terms of what is being proposed in clarity. I think it's just fair that we have a copy of that as well. Thank you.
I fully agree with you, Dr. Mulder. Honorable Moroatshehla, do you have something to say?
Yeah, Chairperson. I thank you very much for the opportunity. I think in line with what Honorable Mulder is saying, can we also from the ANC have the input from both the EFF, as they have just alluded to, the input from the DA and from the Freedom Front Plus, and any other part which might be on the platform? Though by the look of things, it appears it is a game of only these four parties. We don't know what others could be standing for. Thank you.
Honorable LESOMA.
Very much, Chair. It's safe to say, Chair, picking up from what has just been said, is that ANC is open for any party that would like to engage with the ANC. Meanwhile, we'll appreciate probably in particular directed to Honorable Mutla that if there are any other questions that would like ANC to clarify itself on, we will welcome those questions, and also your suggestions in writing so that also we can see how do we change the land ownership patterns of this country. Other than that, Chair, other parties which are not necessarily in this platform because they are not represented because of the proportional representation that we opted for. Also, even them, also, if they want to engage with the ANC, we are very patient, we'll wait for everybody, but also we're not going to be taken for a ride where people are going to impose their views over us. And also, there is no measuring tool in terms of what is significant and insignificant, because we are writing law here, we're not writing political narrative. So that one is very important. E and was and the does have a serious legal implication. So for me, I'll take an exception in what Honorable Tambo have said, but nevertheless, we can debate that one outside. We're dealing with the law here, we're writing the text, not the political narrative, and very responsible so. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable LESOMA. I think the proposal by Honorable Dr. Mulder is correct. But let the ANC, through the Secretariat, circulate their revised version. But similarly, other parties should submit their revised versions, so that at the next meeting, we must then assess the convergences and where the differences are and where the meeting points are, and that will actually help us to move forward. Honorable members, I think as Honorable Mulder says, we can't take the process any further today, but the good thing is that between today and the next meeting, then parties will have exchanged their revised documents, and that will help us then to move forward. Can we leave the matters there and say parties must go back and then finalize their versions and then circulate, and then so that we move forward together from the next meeting? I see another hand. Who is that?
No, it's a delayed hand. My apology, Chair.
Okay, thanks. So we agree, Honorable.
It's me, Chair.
Honorable Gumede.
Chair, may you give us the time frame, not just be open-ended. If we say by Tuesday, contributions by parties must have reached other parties, let's put Tuesday so that it doesn't get delayed.
Thank you, Honorable Gumede. I think that's fair and reasonable. Let's agree that the latest by Tuesday, end of business, information must have circulated. Thank you very much. And the meeting is then adjourned on that note.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Bye.
And bye.
Bye, Principal.